and this meeting is being recorded. We sent surveys out about bus transportation because we were going to try to bring all the kids back at 3 feet. Some counties still have a 3 feet as a recommendation because at the state level, the state said if you have a county Department of Health, you've got to follow those guidelines. If not, there's the state and some other things that are happening. Well, there's only 7 counties of the 67 counties in Pennsylvania that have a Department of Health, and we are one of them. So we go through the summer to try to do the planning. In August, our board passed a reopening plan that opened us virtually. Soon after that, the County Department of Health issued a recommendation for schools to stay closed through October 9th for fear of some of the COVID-related spikes that may occur after Labor Day. We saw the 2 weeks after Labor Day, we saw some of those spikes, and then the 2 weeks since then, the case counts have been coming down. We did surveys last spring. Parents said they wanted to see more synchronous learning. We put that together. We gave more synchronous, and then some of the concerns the last first couple of weeks of schools, it was too much screen time. So we are trying to respect all of the wishes, trying to do the best that we can. And I know that there's many differing opinions out there, and I think that's one of the strengths of our community and our system is that we have very different opinions. We are doing that, sharing those opinions respectfully. And I want to just thank everybody for all the comments and feedback that you've been giving us along the way. But it really has put a tremendous stress on educational systems around the country. Again, it is not the best way to deliver curriculum. Kids are social animals, as are most people. The best practices in education are collaborative, not having kids sit in rows or be in isolation. And of course, pandemic teaching and online learning creates some of that isolationism. So our board's plan was to have a review of where we are by September 25th. We presented that to the board this week. They passed the plan on Tuesday to begin our next phase, which would be to open up in a hybrid model. Hybrid meaning that half the kids will be coming in 2 days a week, half the kids another 2 days a week. And then all the students will be remotely getting their lessons on a Wednesday during the week. And I'll walk you through that schedule in just a second. And we cannot bring everybody in at once because of the 6 feet of social distancing guidance and recommendations that we are following. Until that changes, people have asked, well, can you just bring them all in at 3 feet? We can't do that until that guidance changes. So let me start by, let me share a screen here with looking at our calendar. I don't know if that's up yet. Michael, is that up?
No, not yet. Let me
Okay, hold on.
check something here for you. All right, try it now.
That is not coming up, so let me go another way here. Hold on. Is that website coming up, Michael? That's not, is it?
No.
You
want me to stop down?
I don't know why it is not sharing.
It is enabled for you.
Let me go here. There we go.
There you go.
All right.
Yep. Got
Okay.
it.
So this is our on our website. We have a lot of information that's up there. A lot of questions that people may have that ask. They're all in here. This is the elementary. Here's the middle and high school hybrid. Frequently asked questions that are in our website as we look at how that goes. We have our calendars are all in here as well. Some people asked about some what are the lunch processes. They're all in here. Dismissal processes. Some of our safety guidelines. As we start, we're going to begin this on October 19th for the elementary students, and then we will begin on November 5th for the secondary students. One of the things that is important to recognize that when we start on the 19th, right now our secondary schools are beginning at 8:45. When we start transporting students on our buses, and that starts on October 19th because we are transporting not only our elementary students, but we do have a number of special education students and some of our non-English speaking students. They are in every day now. So we have in fact been in sort of a hybrid plan since we started with about 470 students attending school every day. Because our transportation runs begin, we have to go back to our four-tiered system. So the elementary schools had two different times to start. The three high schools and Fugit will begin on October 19th. So those classes are going to start earlier. They go from an 8:45 start to a 7:45 start. And then Stetson and Pierce are going to go from their later start to an 8:15 start to 2:15. We also, in our plan, because this is a lot more for teachers to plan for 10 students at home and 10 students in school, it's almost double planning for them. We have shortened our day by 30 minutes. So you'll see those ending times are a little bit shorter at the end of the day. We're able to do that because we have many more hours than the 990 hours that we need to meet the school code requirements. I think we have 1,062. By taking that 30 minutes, it's about 30 hours over the course of a year. So we still meet the 990 minimum hours. Of course, the days are still in there, so we do have the days. So that's our schedule that at least as of the 19th. When we start on the on November 5th for the high schools and the middle schools, the high school is going to start a little bit earlier. We go to our original 7:30 time, and again that has to do with the bus schedules that were out there in terms of dropping the kids off. I know a lot of the high school kids like these later start times, and last year we did a whole study on start time committee. And what got in the way was transportation. But if you can take transportation out, which we did in the spring and which we did this fall, we don't have to worry about it. We can start schools at any time. Once we start busing, we have to go back to our original times, pre-COVID and pre-pandemic for that. All right, let me see if I can get. So these are the calendars. This is October calendar for the secondary in here. Again, this is all up on our website, and you can go visit those. This October 9th date, you should have received some information about options for when we return to hybrid, whether you want to remain in the remote plan and just remote in. If that's the case, then you would be, your child would be remoting, logging in through Zoom links at the periods when they occur, accessing those classrooms. Teachers will be instructing in those classrooms, and the students will be learning from home. We are actually running this week and a couple of days next week. We have about 25 teachers who are doing some pilots, and we are creating some videotapes of those. So far this week, they've gone very well in terms of the connections, the kids being able to hear. We do have webcams in the classrooms so that people that are logging in from home are able to see the teachers and participate in the class as well. But we need to know if you want to remain remote or if you want to be on your AB schedule for coming in. So for secondary, again, the elementary starts first. So we just need to know that by the 9th. There are some people that are in the cyber program. If you're going to remain in cyber, you don't need to do anything. But if you're going to move from cyber to hybrid, we need to know that. And if you're going to stay remote, we need to know that. And that has to do with scheduling. So we need a couple of weeks to make sure we firm up those schedules. So for the rest of October, what's currently happening, the students will be, except for that, the start time on the 19th of October, it will be remote learning for the secondary students. We do have some half days in here, the 29th and 30th. These are days where the afternoons will be no school for the students. Something that we've done in pre-pandemic, where we do some professional development for our teachers. And these are some times that we've set aside for our teachers to prepare for our hybrid plan that would begin on November 5th for our secondary students. Now on November 5th will be the first day of in-person, where we'll bring our secondary students in. It is a B day, Thursday and Friday, so Group B, and that's people with last names from L through Z. They will be the first group to come in. And the reason we're not starting with A is because elementary's already started, so elementary's been following this schedule. We've set this up, the A's and the B's, so they match K to 12. So all the elementary A's are the same time as the secondary A's, and vice versa for the B group. So this happens to be B days that we start with the secondary. So the B group is the last names L through Z. We are keeping families together so that if you have some family members with different last names, we'll certainly make exceptions to these, but we will keep families together. Principals also will take a look at the schedule once they get those request forms back in by October 9th, where they may have to balance out the classes because we want to make sure we can get 6 feet of social distancing in our classes. If they have some classes, one group's a little bit higher than another, they may have to reallocate a person from a B to an A group. Somebody had asked me earlier if we did that, and you have children in other levels, would we coordinate that with other buildings? Yes, we will coordinate that with the other building levels as well. So that would be the first group coming in. So on these days, we're focusing on the B kids. There's a lot of things in class that we've got to go through because we are staying on a block schedule when we come back. That's the 4-period day. It takes us 2 days to go through a complete cycle. So the focus here is the B groups in. The A groups do not have primary responsibility for lessons because they will come get that work on Monday and Tuesday, the 9th and 10th, where we'll flip that. We're working out the specifics for the kids who are on remote because we do want to get some lessons in it 2 of the days for the remote kids, whether they're the A or the B group. We want to make sure we have that taken care of as well. Then that Wednesday, the 11th, all students in secondary schools, in fact, all students K to 12 are going to be on a remote schedule, which is very similar to what we're doing currently. So teachers will be delivering their instruction via the Zoom links, much as they are doing now. The teachers felt, as we worked with a teacher task force and an implementation group, they felt it was important to have a day of the week where we got all the kids together on one platform. And because we can't bring them all together with the 6 feet of social distancing, the only way we can do that is over the remote Zoom link to make that happen. And then on November 12th would be this will be the first day for the secondary. A B group will be in person. A group's now remoting into the class for those 2 days. And then on Monday the 16th and Tuesday the 17th, the A group kids will be in while the B group would remote in. And then we start the pattern of the 2 in, 1 remote, 2 out for the calendar. We have some days in here also that are already scheduled for no school. This is election day. That was previously scheduled as a professional development day. That is typically a professional development day pre-pandemic. So we'll be working with our staff again to help prepare and set up their curriculum and their courses in this split hybrid model. So that some people had asked about why are we putting these days in here? Those are in here anyhow. Many of our schools are used for polling sites. We suspect this is going to be a large turnout of elections, so we do not want children in the schools on those days. So that's our calendar as we go through it. And of course, then you have Thanksgiving break at the end of the month. We will put together, that takes us through October, November to get the hybrid model up and running. We will We will put together the remaining months up through the winter break. And if we continue to operate after that, we will continue on with the AA, the BB schedule. If you add them up, they probably don't add up equally for these 2 months. They will eventually throughout the year if we have to remain in a hybrid model throughout the school year. So that's how the calendar will work as we bring this in. I'm going to go through some questions now, some that came in earlier today, and then if there's some questions in the chat, we'll get to them as well, and see if we can answer as many questions this evening to help you with your decisions, to help you better understand how we're here on operating. One question that came in, it says that appears there are conflicts with protocols with mask wearing of students. What are the mask requirements other than eating food in the cafeteria? We are requiring students and staff to wear masks all the time. If you're in the cafeteria, obviously you got to take the mask off to eat. There are medical exemptions for that, and some students have those medical exemptions. For students that have those and provide those, some of those are some of our kids with some sensory issues and sensory disorders. Those students will have shields around them as they're working, as opposed to a mask. Another question was about indoor spaces and aerosols and air movement. If you don't have greater than 6 feet of distance, it doesn't seem like that's being addressed. We have an entire section in our health and safety plan on our HVAC systems and air movement. We are following the CDC guidelines for fresh air circulation in our schools. For schools that have air conditioning, which I think all the secondary schools have air conditioning. 2 of our elementaries do not. But we are changing those filters out regularly as per the CDC for all those filtering systems. We are running those systems 24/7 and regulating with the fresh air intake. Typically pre-pandemic, we would shut them down at night, but they are running constantly to keep that fresh air movement in and out of the school. And those are all part of the CDC guidelines. Another question that came in, are we going to test kids prior to coming into the school? We are not testing kids. And again, these are recommendations from the County Department of Health. We are asking parents and staff. Staff are going to be self-monitoring. We do have a checklist that we will be sending out on a regular basis to parents to make sure that you're checking before your child comes into school. We do request if your child is sick, stay home, remote in. You have that remote option on any given day so that you can remote in. We are doing all we can to keep any kind of viruses or flu, even non-COVID related, out of the schools to keep our school environment as safe as possible. Question about the cycle days. How will these cycle days work during some of these half days and the 4 days when they're not in there? The cycle days are going to run. They're going to have shortened periods in there, and the principals are working on some details with the teachers on that, and they'll send that out because these are block periods. They're longer periods of time. We will be able to run additional periods through those cycle days for those first couple of transition days. But the principals will be sending out more specific information about those schedules once they finish those up and what they look like in terms of what time will those links be open and what time will the periods change. As the kids are in school, we'll walk them all through those, obviously, for those cycle days. Question about gym uniforms in the school. Will children have to change into the gym uniforms in school? Initially, we are not using locker rooms as we start this out. We are actually meeting Monday with our health and phys ed staff to work out some particulars and some regulations for how we can safely use those locker rooms. And teachers will clarify the expectations for that. But initially, as we open that up for kids that will have the PE days, the principals and the health and PE teachers will be sending out a little bit more detail about what kind of dress they should wear for those gym days. Another question that came in earlier was, once everyone is in hybrid, are we going to follow that 8:45 start time? I think I addressed that earlier. Once we start on October 19th, our secondary schools will begin at 7:45. And then once we get into the November 5th date, we go back to our normal times that we were going pre-pandemic. And that is being driven by transportation. Will sixth graders eat at the same time? Yes, we are planning to have our sixth graders eat at the same time. Because we have half the students in at any given time, we are using our cafeterias. They will be facing one direction. They will be 6 feet apart, social distanced. Some schools that may not have enough room, depending on how many are in an A or a B group, may use overflow areas such as the library if we can't get all of the students in to the cafeterias. I think most of the cafeterias are large enough to accommodate kids on those different rotations and different times for lunch. So yeah, 6th, 7th, 8th at the high school, there may be mixed lunch periods. They are not typically set. Their lunches are not set by 9th, 10th, 11th, or 12th grade, but there are limits in those cafeterias, and that's part of the scheduling piece that our schedulers at our high schools are going to have to work on sometime after October 9th. But we will have people 6 feet apart, wearing masks anywhere in the school except when they are eating, and that will be monitored closely by our staff. I would say that we did visit many schools. There are about 85% of the schools in the state of Pennsylvania are already opened. There are some areas around Allegheny County and some areas around Philadelphia that opened virtually, and certainly we're in the county that many of the schools here open virtually. We did go visit them. We did see their cafeteria procedures. We did see their hallway procedures. We've even seen some of their remote learning procedures that they have in place. So we've learned some lessons from them. They have all been successful, and I say that with not saying that again, this is the best way to do it, but they have been successful in keeping their schools open. They have not had extreme number of cases. If there is a case, I know some people have asked, if you have a case, what's the protocol and procedure that you follow? We follow the procedures that are outlined in the Chester County Health Department. Again, those are all up on our website. And they do the contact tracing. So if there is a positive case, we turn that over to the county. They do the contact tracing. They then would notify the anybody that came in contact with that person and go into the quarantining piece. They've defined what's an extended contact. It would be if you're within 6 feet for more than 15 minutes. So there's even definitions as to what determines that. Our notifications for the school, we will notify people if there is a case, and you will be notified if there was a need for quarantining. This may require quarantining some students, may require quarantining some staff. At that point, we would have to switch to some type of remote learning. If there are 2 cases that are linked together, that may end up causing us to close a building. And again, those are all Department of Health guidelines. If we have to close a building, that building would then switch back to remote learning for the educational process for that 14-day period. So those are the guidelines for safety. There have been none of the districts that we visited or spoke with had to get to that point. There have been some, just as we have had with all of our guidelines that we've been practicing. We did have 4 of our sports teams in the summer, 4 different sports teams where we had 1 student tested positive. And then that team had to quarantine for 14 days. No other students showed any signs, and they came back. So we've been following those procedures. We've been following that protocol, and it seems to work so far. And that's what we found with some of these schools that we went out to visit that are already operating like that. Those were the questions that came in earlier. Michael, do we have some others in the chat?
Yes, there are questions in the chat, and there is one additional question that came into the Google Doc. How will the kids be separated when walking in the halls from one class to another?
Okay, as the kids walk in the halls from one class to another, again, we will be showing them, telling them to stay social distanced away. So they need to be staggered on their release times, provide a little bit more time between those classes to make sure that we can get the kids safely to and from the classes. We are not having kids stop for locker breaks as we get out in the beginning of this, just so we can get kids moved to and from. They will be required, obviously, to wear masks throughout the school, particularly in the hallways, as they're passing to and from classes.
Okay. The question of the evening, and there were several people who posted this question. What does the state of emergency that was just declared in Westchester Borough, what does that mean for the school district operations? Will there be an impact on next week's hybrid trial and/or timing of the planned hybrid program?
Well, I was just reading that before we got on this link, so I just skimmed over that announcement to see what was in there. I do know that as we look every Friday at the Chester County cases, that the Westchester Area School District had one area in the borough that had some higher case counts. At the board meeting on Tuesday, we had Jean Kasner, the director of the county health department, explain that, and she said that there were a couple of streets in the borough of Westchester that they were monitoring closely. They were scheduling a meeting with the borough to see if they can address it. It was really for students that were aged, I think 18 to 27-year-olds. I think as I was reading in that release today, they're looking at 18 to 22-year-olds. We know that Westchester University had 14 cases of positive cases. Those go into, because that's in our footprint, they go into our data. There were no K to 12 cases that were released up until last Friday. I haven't seen the report that came out at 6 tonight, so I haven't had a chance to look at the county cases for this week. But they're targeting. Looks like they're targeting an area. It sounded like a couple of rental areas. To me, it sounds like it is probably some college student areas that they are trying to stop some of the non-social distancing things that are going on. So I will get a hold of the mayor and find out what the particulars are with that. I knew there was going to be a meeting, and in fact, the health department told us that Tuesday night to try to mitigate some of those high cases. It sounds like that's what they've targeted, and it sounds like that was a precaution. I think if anything, it will help our case count if they're going to be monitoring the 18 to 22-year-olds that are not social distancing, and I think that will lower the case counts over the next 3 weeks. But that remains to be seen where we are with that. But it sounds like they are targeting an area they thought was going to be a concern that's becoming a concern, and it sounds like it's 18 to 22-year-olds according to that release.
Okay, thank you. I think the next question, I think the answer was inferred, but I guess just for clarity, I'll ask the question again. Will students be using lockers?
They will not be using lockers as we first start off with these first couple weeks.
Okay. If our child is in remote learning and we choose to stay there for now, can we switch to hybrid at a later time?
Yes, good question. If you start in, you're in remote, you want to stay in remote, can you switch to hybrid at a later time? Short answer is yes. We do ask that we get some notice on that because we want to make sure that as we're dropping more kids into that schedule, we don't overload a classroom and not able to get the 6 feet of social distancing. So we have set at natural breaks for any of that to occur. But the building principal is going to need to know in advance so we can make sure that we schedule that.
Will the kids be permitted to eat at their desks during class or only in the cafeteria? Some kids do not have a lunch period.
I think, and Dr. Sokolowski, maybe you can help me with the high school piece on that. The lunch periods,
Yeah, we are
I'm not so sure we
actually
have students that don't have lunch periods right now.
we will be ensuring every student has a lunch period, because what we'll have to do with our lunch blocks, which would be on the AM period days, would be period 3, and on the PM period days would be period 7. We'll have students within that those blocks. They'll go to a certain group of students will go to lunch first for 30 minutes as part of their 7th period class. Another group will have class, go to lunch, come back to class. And we're largely there going to try to target our students who would already be in study hall, who may have already had that period scheduled for lunch. And then the third group of students would go to class first for about, I think it's close to 80 minutes, and then they would get about a 30-minute lunch. So in this model, that actually is something that I think is of benefit because our high school students are generally a lot of them are very overloaded. So we'll be ensuring lunch for every student.
Okay.
Thank you. That's Bob Sokolowski, our assistant superintendent.
Okay, I'm going to read this next question. It's lengthy. How does the hybrid AAXBB schedule coincide with the 10-day high school block schedule? Example, 5-day cycle times AM, PM. Will they continue to alternate as current? So Monday A in person, day 1 AM, Tuesday A in person for day 1 PM. Wednesday all remote for day 2 AM, Thursday B in person for day 2 PM. Friday B in person for day 3 AM and so forth. When we have a day off, will the day AMs versus PMs pick up where they left off as currently happens, but the A group versus B group in person versus remote will not?
I could take that, Jim.
Take that one, Bob.
Please,
Okay,
somebody take that one.
yeah.
That interpretation, I may have lost the last bit there, but the general, and Jim had talked about this a little bit earlier, but our high school students, our middle school students will continue to follow the same cycle day rotation. So it will still take, because of the AM and the PM, it will still take approximately 10 days for high school students to go through a 5-day cycle and 12 days for middle school students to go through. One of the things that I can share with parents too, just talking to a lot of our teachers, particularly today, that many teachers are, as they're thinking about the instructional model for hybrid, they're realizing that many of the great things that are happening remotely will continue to happen. So we'll still see a pretty good degree of synchronous instruction. It's going to look a little bit different, but that is something that I think our teachers are really recognizing, is that while hybrid will be difficult, there are a lot of good practices that they'll be able to take forward and to have students in front of them, at least 2 days a week will be of a significant benefit.
And that was a great question that I apparently butchered, so I apologize. But it is a good question. Okay, I think we addressed the next question. If you are remote and you choose to switch to hybrid, you can do that, but you need to give the principal some lead time to make those arrangements.
Correct.
If you choose hybrid, but the numbers in our county start going up, can you keep your child home on their in-person days?
Well, you can keep your child home. Again, as I said earlier, if there's an illness and your child is sick, you certainly can come in remote. If people want to change to go to remote, certainly a parent has an option to do that, and there still is an option to remote in. That is something, if you want to make it permanent, we'd like to know that, because that's just one less child we have to account for in the building on that day, and know that it's going to be remote.
Okay, and I think this one You may have answered, but I'm going to just make sure. If we choose to keep a child in remote learning, will it be more asynchronous than it has been to date?
You want to take that one, Bob? You want me to?
Yes, I think, as I shared earlier, what I'm hearing from teachers from even their own planning purposes and continuity, I think while there may be some components that are going to be a little bit more asynchronous, I think for the most part that the students are still going to have plenty of synchronous opportunities to be able to engage with their teachers as well as their classmates. When we might do breakout rooms, it might be that the remote students are breaking out with other remote students or other students who would be at home on that hybrid day. So it might be a little bit more asynchronous, but as I am just talking to teachers around the school district, I am seeing, and I know our instructional technology coaches, we're strongly supporting to maintain that synchronicity that's in place now.
Yeah, and I think there is also, even currently with the current model, you have some that are some lesson design is more synchronous versus asynchronous, and some of the types of learners. Some of the kids want to just log in, get their assignments, and then just go off and do it, and come back at the end of the period and check in. Not that they leave, but they're working on their own independently. So I think it depends on some of the levels of the classes and the structure, just as it is now.
Next question, why are you relying on parents and guardians to monitor their children before they go to school? Parents sent their kids to school sick before COVID. They are definitely going to do it now. Why aren't temperature checks going to be administered by the schools?
That is, again, that's coming out of the county health department guidance. The sheer number of students that we have in terms of coming in and taking temperature checks. I think at one time when we talked to the health department, that is just one of the checks that needs to happen. That there's a whole list of things to look at. Temperature doesn't necessarily mean that it is a COVID related problem. If we do notice kids looking sick or feeling sick in the class, we send them to the nurse. There is an isolation area in the nurse's office where we then monitor the student, and then we would send that student home, and most likely have a test if there's some signs of any kind of COVID-19 at that point. So those are the recommendations from the Department of Health, and we are following those, as are all the schools in Chester County.
With the block schedule, there is potentially a lot of extended downtime for students. Are high school students able to come late and leave early based on their schedule?
Yeah, there's if the students have a period where there's an open period because of the way that block flows at the beginning of the day or the end of the day, they have transportation to and from school. Yes, they will be permitted to be late arrivals. Many of them would like that. They'll get their sleep. Or they can leave early on that day if they have a period open at the end of the day.
Okay. This is a question specifically about the impacts on Henderson with the mayor's order. If the borough shutdown impacts Henderson, how will we be notified if we have a child that is planning to go in for a hybrid trial on Monday?
Well, if the borough shuts down, if there's a mandatory order to shut down all buildings, not all of Henderson is in the borough. In fact, most of it is located in West Goshen Township. Short answer is I don't know how that would affect us. I didn't see that order as closing businesses. I saw that order as really kind of targeting some areas that are not following social distancing practices. So they are buckling down and issuing a fine if there are groups that are gathering beyond the limits in the groups.
Okay. If the kids do not use lockers, are they allowed to carry backpacks to every class?
Yes.
Yes. And just one of the things I want to point out, as we've started the school year remotely, a lot of the students are accessing their materials by way of online text and online resources. So that will continue. And with the block schedule, really representing, 4-period days. The students wouldn't be, so to speak, lugging around backpacks that would be full of books and text for every single class that they have on their schedule.
Okay, then I guess by inference, I think we've answered the next question. If kids are not if the kids are not using lockers, where will they store coats and other belongings? They're going to carry them, but only half the amount because of the block schedule on any given day. During advisory period in the middle school, will students go to or stay in their homeroom class? Will there be content taught, or is this a quote free period?
So the advisory period is something actually that is a result of the 4-period block, because our middle schools are traditionally 7 class periods with lunch. And so we had to, in terms of balancing out the schedule, had to add that period in. So the way that it's working now is almost a check-in opportunity for kids. And when we go to hybrid, we're going to continue that. What we are, though, working on is what does that look like for the students who are at home? It certainly is not going to be linked to the screen for that amount of time. We do recognize that it's important, especially for the kids at home, to be able to have some downtime away from the screen. But as we move forward with the development of more particular plans, our middle school principals will be reaching out with more information about advisories.
And how does the middle school block schedule translate to hybrid with the advisory period and the small break before lunch to allow for the shortened day and change in times?
So just as I said, the advisory will still be there, but for students at home, we're looking at that as being a check-in time, but also being a time to get away from the screen. And that's one of the things that we recognize why the block is in place for hybrid. Is that if we do have to go back and forth between remote and hybrid, at least the students aren't adjusting, to dramatically different schedules.
And how would remote physical education work?
I would think a lot of the same things that are happening now, and those may be courses, those are courses too, where there are synchronous opportunities for kids to meet with the teachers, but they are doing things asynchronously, such as just logging their activities. I know of a colleague that I work with that, her son during his PE time, his log activity was to go walk around the neighborhood. So that we're still doing those kind of things. As Dr. Scanlon said, we are meeting with our health and PE department chairs next week to talk more about how we're going to transition to hybrid with our PE department.
Okay. Here's an interesting question. Do you call your student out for an in-person day if they are sick, even if they will be logging in remotely?
Well, if they are scheduled for a remote day and they are sick, if they are not going to be, if they're sick enough that they're not able to access their work, I would say yes, call them out sick so that we know where they are. As we're taking attendance each of those periods, we have to do that for the compulsory attendance laws. But if you're able to, if you're sick and you're able to log in, obviously you're still going to be counted for the day to do the work remotely.
Okay, so if they're out, if it's an in-person day and they are able to remote in, they don't need to call in sick, or they do?
Well, they will not be counted as sick. They would need to let us know that they are going to be home and access remotely.
Okay.
Yes, I misunderstood that question. Yes.
Okay. Will students have to bring their laptops with them daily for in-person days as well?
Yes, because they're typically, and we've been using a one-to-one laptops for 6 through 12, at least through last year. For the last 5 years, we've had laptops assigned to students, so that there may be assignments that kids may have to get up on Schoology. That is something that has been going on at the secondary schools pre-pandemic. So yes, they will need their laptops with them, and just in case they need to access some of that work that's posted up online. Many of the teachers, in fact, all of the assignments, I believe, are posted on Schoology, and that was pre-pandemic as well.
Okay. There's appreciation for the planning, flexibility, thought in this critical issue. So thank you for that. I want to create a calendar and trying to understand how the day 1, 5 a.m. p.m. calendar corresponds to the AAXBB hybrid schedule.
Bob, you want to talk about the cycle days, the day 1 through 5? We did not put that up on the website. We do have that calendar mapped out. We're using that as an internal document. And I think as weekly newsletters go out in terms of what cycle day it will be, it just was too confusing to put up on the website, but we do have that mapped out.
Yes, we want to be careful with not inundating folks with a lot of detailed information, but as we move forward, and as I shared earlier, the cycle day continuity is going to continue as it is in remote. It'll continue in hybrid.
Next question. In hybrid model, do secondary students get 2 teachers per course, 1 on remote and 1 on the in-person day?
They would not. If they're assigned to a current biology teacher in the remote, and they're going to have that current biology teacher live, that current biology teacher will be teaching from the classroom, and the students who are home logging in, watching that through the webcam, through Zoom, they will see that same teacher. So short answer is they're not going to have 1 teacher on the remote day and 1 teacher on the in-person day. It's the same teacher.
I think I can address this next question. If the kids are accessing materials online when in school as opposed to using books, does this impact the school's wireless bandwidth? We've done some internal testing. We've increased our capacity significantly in terms of bandwidth out to the internet. There are obviously limitations on our internal wireless. We are discouraging for a number of reasons, but technology is certainly one of them. A lot of internal Zooming on those days in school. So if students are using their laptops for more routine kinds of functions that take less bandwidth, we're not terribly concerned. We've been able to manage thousands of kids pre-pandemic accessing our wireless network. So we don't see an issue with the more routine kinds of tasks students would be performing that we've scaled our network to deal with that pre-pandemic. Again, if I've got 6,000 people in school Zooming and 6,000 people out of school Zooming, yes, that will bring the network to its knees, but that's not our plan for this hybrid. And the next question, what are the actual times for the 4 periods and lunch for hybrid?
I could talk a little bit about that, but the hybrid schedules for the middle school, I spoke about it for the high school, but for the middle school, they're rather specific to each school and each grade because of where the unified art periods fall. But that is something that will be forthcoming, but it does mirror what the high school schedule would look like in terms of we're going to be using a period where students would be in class and going to lunch, as I had described earlier. So that way we're ensuring that we can make sure that we have the social distancing happening during the lunch periods.
Okay. Just want to say thanks to WCASD I know this has not been easy and you can't make everyone happy. I appreciate all the work that went into a plan that keeps students safe, works to balance a variety of needs for students and families. Choices you have presented create important options. Thank you for that. And there's also, if folks look in the chat, one of our instructional technology coordinators posted a link to the hybrid calendars and schedules for your reference. Thank you for that, Mr. Cromwell. On a side note, I think you're rock stars. Thank you for doing all that you're doing, and do not envy your job. Thank you. Thank you. We're handling it with grace and transparency. We appreciate that. Okay. Looks like basically how does the 8:45 to 3:30 schedule translate to a 7:45 to 1:45 schedule? So I guess we're looking at that 30-minute shortened periods and the change to our pre-COVID start times. I don't know if you want to, how to it translates to shorter periods, I think is the answer, correct?
Yes, shorter periods, and also that time that we have built in right now for in the middle of the day where we have the lunch and the small groups or the check-in times. So that time goes away a bit. So that's one of it. And as Dr. Scanlon talked about, we really want to make sure that our teachers have that planning time, because hybrid will be very difficult. So we look at that as an investment really in the children to provide the teachers with that additional planning time. And hopefully, you know, if we are in hybrid, hopefully things progress in a positive way, and we can, who knows, maybe be back full in person at some point, you know, at the start of 2021.
Okay. Okay. Are the new times for each block scheduled somewhere or are still being worked on?
They are just still being detailed, but they will be up on our websites. We will have them come out from each middle school to each family, because as I was talking about, those schedules for the middle schools are different by school and by grade level because of the unified art placements.
And what does small groups mean on the calendar?
Small group refers to middle school and refers to time that we have linked with the lunch period time. So that's a time that if teachers wanted to work with small groups of students, they're able to do that. That's really in the current model where we are right now.
Okay. And I think you may have answered this, are new times for blocks available for high school?
They are available. They just need to go up on the website.
Okay. So stay tuned. Okay. Just want to say thank you so much for all you're doing. My daughter is a 6th grader, and she wanted to know if there will be any transition days. She's worried about not remembering where her classes are. So I think we'll probably want to talk about those 4 days. And
yeah, so that would be part of the 4 days, but I do recognize that even though we had the transition days for 6th and 9th graders or orientation for 9th grade back in August, or some groups actually back in July. So I'm going to have some conversations with our high school and middle school principals to see if there's anything that we could potentially do before that time, because, you know, knowing where your classrooms are, I think is an important piece.
okay. And,
But we will, Michael, with those 4 days. I mean, you got 8 or 10 kids, so you got a small group of kids to work with to make those first 2 days in there for each of the A groups and B groups. A lot more teacher directed, particularly for the 6th graders and the 9th graders.
Great. Okay. And will there be new remote schedules as well, or will they be following remote students following the hybrid schedule?
The students, if So just so I understand this, if this is for a student who chooses or family chooses to stay in remote when we go to hybrid, the remote schedule will follow the hybrid schedule because we'll have students checking in at those same times as their classmates who may be in school.
Okay. All right, another thank you so much for everything you are doing. By the way, I will say we do print the chat, so all of your comments, questions will be read, and if there's an answer that or a question that we want to reiterate, we'll certainly make sure that's part of the FAQs, and certainly appreciate the comments. Will science classes be able to do labs, and how will that work with the AB schedule?
They will be able to do labs. We need to, be cautious though, just about safety. With that, we're also, as we are in remote fashion right now, we are doing labs remotely. So for the students who would be at home during a lab day, they would still be able to participate, but it would probably look like for them a little less hands-on because they're not actually there in the lab. But the advantage too with the high school science classes is as we are in the block period, we have a little bit more flexibility as to when the labs can happen.
Good. At the moment, that looks like all of the questions. I'll ask at this point if there are any other questions to post them now. Otherwise, I mean, there are a number of different ways you can get information. If it's not on our website, there is the reopening at WCASD.net, and your questions will be answered.
Yeah, Michael, and there's a lot of things. I know it's a Friday evening, and again, I appreciate everybody coming out and giving us questions, and we want to answer them all. As Michael said, there's many ways. If you have questions, your building principals are very well versed. We've all been working together very feverishly to make this transition as smooth as possible. Principals can help answer some of those questions. Any of us in the central office, Bob Sokolowski, our assistant superintendent, Michael Wagman, our technology director, any of us, I'm available too. And I've heard from, I see some of the names on here. I've heard from many of the people on here, and again, I appreciate your feedback and comments, and your patience and positivity, which has really become the theme that we've adopted throughout this process. Because in my 36 years as an educator, I've never experienced anything like this in terms of how fast we have to keep flipping and changing. I said to our school board on Tuesday night that typically, if we were going to do a major change, we would bring that to the board in the month of December for implementation for the following fall. And we would have probably involved community and staff and parents in that process for 3 to 6 months prior to coming to the school board. We're having to make these decisions and changes in a couple of weeks. Sometimes the guidance changes and we've got to change it in a couple of days. And these are very difficult decisions. So it is not the best way to do it, but right now that's the speed at which we're operating. So patience and positivity, that is our theme. I thank you so much for your patience.
We do have one more question.
Oh, we do. Okay.
Yep. And yes, and I know mentioned it's principals will be sending out a lot of detailed information specific to their schools. Is there actually two more questions now? Is there a particular case volume or threshold in the country that you would consider cause to go full or fully remote?
Yes, there's a threshold that is out there by the Department of Health.
I'm sorry, I meant county, not country.
That is in our plan. It has to do with the percent positivity of in the county, the number of new cases by week, and it is looking at a three consecutive weeks But they have rates in there of high, very, very high, high, moderate, and low, and then what's recommended. So when we get to those very high rates, which we are not in right now, we have not been in for the past 4 weeks in Chester County. We are able to open in virtual or hybrid. It's not until we get to those low rates that we can open with all kids in, and at that point we would have to see the social distancing guidelines change a little bit, and then the very high rates would be a recommendation to go back to a remote plan, a virtual plan. I will tell you that I am not one to say every other week we're going to close a school for a week or 2 weeks and then open a school for a week or 2 weeks. I think we are taking all the precautions we can to open safely, keep us open safely for as long as we can. If in fact there is a pandemic and another outbreak, certainly we would go back into a virtual plan. My guess is if that happens, we're probably looking until spring or until there's a vaccine or better treatments for this virus. But right now we are taking all the safety precautions. We have learned from other school systems that have done very similar precautions, and we are going to the next phase. So we think it's important to bring our students back, bring them back safely, but also have safety precautions that if somebody is sick or feeling ill, that they can still access their learning from home. So we are doing all of that.
Are there any current high school, middle school athletes or teams or teachers that are quarantining?
Are there any current that are quarantined? We have had several staff members that, because, and I'll give you an example where some of the colleges, when the colleges were going, closing and going remotely, some of their kids came back. They may have been exposed to somebody who had coronavirus from the college. And so we've had staff quarantine because of that, but they have not shown signs. And when some staff were tested, they came back negative. So we have not had that. We did, as I said, we did have 4 students that tested positive on sports teams. They went through the quarantining, and no other students or staff or coaches got sick or showed any signs of getting sick.
Okay. And one more question. I think it focuses on those first 4 days. Which are the days that only A students will be in and B students will have days off versus only B students in and A students have the day off for start of hybrid orientation? Will there be classwork happening on those days? Will teachers do the same coursework with the A group on their in-person days and the B group on their in-person days, so everyone is at the same place in the course content?
Yeah, they will be repeating their lessons for those 2 days because the focus is going to be on the some of the procedural pieces as we bring kids back for the safety pieces. So we want to keep kids. Short answer is yes. We're going to keep kids at the same spot in their content. Yes.
All right. I think that's it.
Okay, once again, thank you so much, everybody, for coming out, and thanks for your patience as we work through a very challenging time. I know that some of the pilots, I actually got to see some of those that were happening at the elementary schools today. We have some of the high schools scheduled for next week, and it was really, people were excited to see kids back in the schools. I will tell you that our teachers missed them very much. And I know that I see a number of particularly our high school students out in the community. I haven't met one yet that has said, keep us out. They really want to come back in. They want to get back into their schools. And I've said this to the students, and I'll say this to everybody here. We want to make sure we do it safely. So anything that you can do, particularly for your older children, just remind them that we do have these procedures in place for safety. And as long as we follow them, we know that those protocols have worked for the times that we've had to use them. We know they work in the other school districts that are already open. And we think we can do it. We can do it as well. So thank you so much for all that you're doing. Someday this will all be over. We'll be able to sit back and say we all survived the pandemic of 2020. and hopefully we have some good, healthy, and safe stories that we can tell about it. So thanks, everybody. If you have questions, again, you can send them to us. If there's things that we miss as we develop specific schedules, we will get those up on our website and update that as we go. Have a great weekend, and we'll talk to everybody in some of our next sessions.
Okay.
Thank you.